So I started Sanome from a very personal background that I lost my father because clinical teams detected his deterioration too late. And that's crazy that still is happening today because we are so rapidly digitizing the healthcare industry. And in many ways, that is what we're trying to do. Well, that is not even what we're trying to do. That is what we have now done at Sanome. We take data from patients that are in hospital and we use advanced techniques to then try and predict what is happening to that patient.
I mean, I would definitely pay because that's why people buy Apple Watch, because of the health reasons.
Right. Go and speak to your customers. Go and speak to your users. Don't rely on ChatGPT. Don't do startup accelerators, incubators where you just sit there and strategize. Go and speak to your user and try and just shadow your user for a day or 2 or 3 doing that job. That's it. Really simple.
In one sentence, what does the future of healthcare look like?
Your health understood.
Hello everyone, my name is Abdurehman and I'm your host of TechFindsTech podcast. Welcome back with another episode. Today we have a wonderful guest, Benedikt, with us. Thank you, Benedikt, for joining us. Can you please start with your introduction?
Hey, good morning. I'm Benedikt, founder and CEO at Sanome.
Sounds good. So we will start with the bit of dive into your personal thing behind Sanome. So you have mentioned your why for founding Sanome comes from lived experience. Can you tell us a bit about the moment and how it shaped your belief that healthcare must shift from reactive to proactive care?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started Sanome from a very personal background that I lost my father because clinical teams detected his deterioration too late. And that's crazy that that still is happening today because we are so rapidly digitizing the healthcare industry that we now have the data. So why are clinical teams not detecting deteriorations? And that was the big problem space, right, we're operating in. And if you look at clinical practice, is very often the data is in the wrong place, the wrong format at the wrong time. And then you have clinicians who are massively overstretched. So it becomes really difficult for them to make life or death decisions based on messy data. So the gap that's really missing is how do you translate data to decisions? And that's the space that Sanome operates in. So we're building a clinical intelligence platform that helps clinical teams answer 2 key questions. Question number 1 is, who is this patient in front of me? What do I need to know about this patient in order to make the best possible decision? And number 2 is, what is happening to this patient? What information, what trends can you tell me about that I need to understand so that I can provide the best possible treatment as early as possible to the individual? And we started that journey 4.5 years ago. We pivoted once. We initially started trying to solve that problem in an at-home setting. But what we realized very quickly is that this type of data that gets generated in an at-home setting, those people don't get sick. It's the worried well. So we pivoted about 2 years ago to move from an at-home setting into a hospital setting or clinical setting where that problem is much more prevalent. So who is the patient and what's happening to that patient? And it's been an amazing journey. We've been extremely lucky that we get to work with some incredible physicians, clinical teams who share a lot of their data with us. We've recently obtained medical device certification for that first product that sits in the hospital. And we're now helping clinicians understand who's the patient and surfacing that insight about what's happened to the patient. And it's very early days, but early evidence. But what we're seeing is early intervention is better for the patient, but it's also better financially for the hospital.
Sounds very interesting, Benedikt. So you mentioned you recently got a certification for a device. So are you transitioning from, not transitioning, but are you expanding from software to hardware as well?
Not at all. And I think this is a legacy regulatory terminology that we refer to software as a medical device, or medical devices still has the word like a physical device in it, but software can be considered a medical device under medical device regulation in Europe or FDA in the US. But no, we're pure software. well, in fact, actually, we're AI based. I guess that's also software, right? But AI is a big buzzword at the moment. So yes, we are the first multimodal biomedical AI that's fully certified as a Class 2B AI as a medical device in Europe.
Sounds good. So moving to the next question, you have built at scale companies in AI, renewable energy, and biotech. What experiences from these very different worlds helped you approach healthcare innovation differently this time?
So, whilst they're very different industries, the core principles are always the same. And it is, who is your customer? What is their problem? How do you solve that problem? And are they willing to pay for it? And that's always the same recipe, and it's really, really simple.
Yeah,
And once you figure that out, it's like, okay, now I know how. Well, I know the why, I know the what, I know now I can figure out the how, which is how am I going to go and raise capital and build teams, etc., etc. But I think the biggest cross learning across all industries is that total user obsession, and it's very strange to me that there's so many deep tech or healthcare medtech companies that have phenomenal technology, but they've never spoken to a customer. Or they've spoken to one or two advisors who tell them, well, this is how you need to do it. But at the core, and this is particularly true what I learned in the software space, was that total obsession about the user. How is the user going to use this innovation in their workflow? And how does it solve a big problem for them that either they can't solve themselves, or that would make it a lot better for them and that they're willing to pay for it?
getting a point. So it's the same philosophy, I guess, Steve Jobs used, like designing the product around the user instead of designing the product and finding the users for the product, right?
Absolutely, and in a very simple thing, it's technology push versus market pull. And what I've seen, and I've been very, very fortunate, I've got to work with some incredible people that have developed incredible technology. Great. So let's start from that incredible technology, and then let's start thinking about where does that technology fit in the marketplace, and let's find some users that have real problems where that technology could be used. And then you've got that transition of technology is definitely not a product. So now I've got to go and build a product. The technology is just an enabler of the
Yeah.
product piece. And once a product, what does it focus on? Why does my customer need this? That's the
Mm.
obsession bit.
Yeah, that's the point, like knowing your customer and serving them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Sanome is creating a human digital twin. For someone outside of the medical or tech world, how would you describe what that means and how it can change the way we think about health?
Yeah, really good question. And the word human digital twin now gets used for a whole raft of different things. So let me abstract this slightly. So when you get into an aeroplane, every turbine will have a digital copy or a synthetic copy of that turbine, and there'll be lots and lots and lots of sensors on that turbine. And it will be collecting real-time data, and it will put it into a really complex computer model that continuously analyzes the performance of that engine and does two things. One of them, it may adjust certain parameters, or two, it will start predicting when things are going wrong and start predicting when things go wrong. And that information is then serviced to both the engineering and the maintenance teams, who can then intervene earlier. I replace a part that is at high risk of breaking, or can adjust the performance of the model to make sure that nothing breaks. And in many ways, that is what we're trying to do. Well, that is not even what we're trying to do. That is what we have now done at Sanome, is we take data from patients that are in hospital, and we use advanced techniques to then try and predict what is happening to that patient. And we surface that intelligence to the service and maintenance teams, which are your clinical teams, so that they can then intervene earlier. So they understand what is happening. So who are you and what's happening to you? It's effectively the same model. Now, the more data that becomes available around you and me, the better the model is going to get, the more power the clinician has to intervene earlier and detect things that go wrong earlier. And what we have built is the framework to enable that to happen from a data point of view, from an AI point of view, from a regulatory point of view, and from, most critically, from a product point of view, that that information is surfaced to the clinician at the right point in time. And the output, in many ways, is now a data flywheel. So the more data that's available around an individual, the more powerful the insight becomes. The more powerful the insight is, the more clinicians want to use it. The more clinicians want to use it, the more hospitals want to use it. That means more patients get to use it. More patients means more data, more insights, and we're into that data flywheel. And that's where we are now today. I mean, almost a question to you or your listeners, how much would you be willing to pay, or via your insurance company or your health system, to have a tool that monitors your health continuously and then helps clinical teams understand who you are and what's happening to you so that they can provide the best possible care for you?
I mean, I would definitely pay because that's why people buy Apple Watch because of the health reasons,
Correct.
and that's why people buy Whoop Band because of the health
Yeah.
reason. So definitely, if I have this device, I would definitely pay for, because in the end, health is something that every human values at core. It is not something people negotiate with.
100%, but I will make one critical difference here. So yes, we're paying Apple Health, Google Health, Samsung Health, Whoops, you name it.
Mm,
But
mm.
for a clinician to use that data, it needs to be translated
Yeah,
into a medical
exactly.
device and embedded in the clinical workflow. Like, we
Mm,
see this all the time where some data hungry or tech savvy clinicians do look at someone's Whoop
mm.
data and say, oh, wow, your heart rate variability is up or down based on the medication. But that is, whose fault is it now if something starts going wrong?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's the gap that we are solving. So if anyone from those technical teams are listening to this podcast, I'm here, I'm happy to help. How do you translate that incredible data that's now being collected into decisions that
Yeah.
clinicians can use and trust day to day? That's the digital twin loop. Data to
Got
decision.
you. Got you. Got you. It sounds very interesting that you are like taking raw data and actually converting that raw data into actionable insights, not just insights,
Exactly.
but insights on which the end user or the
The
data
clinician. The
receiver,
clinician.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
they can take decisions on those data points.
exactly. Exactly.
Sounds very interesting. So moving to the next question, you are developing one of the first CE certified class lab AI driven clinical decision tools. How do you balance the excitement of AI innovation with the caution and regulation required in medicine?
So it's really, really amazing. It's so cool. Um, like 2 or 3 years ago, this would not have been possible, right? Because the AI has not really matured to the level that you can do multimodal AI. Two is the regulators are so actively working on, how do we regulate? How do we certify? How do we ensure that these AI models perform in clinical practice? And it's very, very, very new field. And it's really, really cool to be working with so many different regulatory bodies and really thinking about this problem space. And we are one of the first companies outside of radiology that have a multimodal AI that's in this space, and we're actively working on it. And happy to dive a lot deeper into it for those that are geeky. I want to understand post-market surveillance and post-market clinical follow-up studies and all of that kind of wonderful stuff. But I'm going to keep it at top level at this stage.
Got you. Okay. So you have emphasized on co-designing tools directly with clinicians. What is that collaboration so critical? And what has it taught you about how AI should fit into clinical workflows?
Yeah, so it's exactly what I said right at the beginning. It always starts about the product and understanding the why. You know, what is the problem we're solving and why does it help a clinician? So this is what other people would call agile software development. in every other industry.
Yeah.
And in healthcare, bizarrely enough, because people are so busy, because the workflows are so complex, people don't do it very often. But that's the bread and butter. So we spend a huge amount of time with our users. We've just hired someone else, and they spend 80% of their time on the wards, shadowing clinicians, understanding their workflows, understanding their pain points, constantly annoying them with questions of, why did you do it like this? Why did you do it like that? What are you trying to achieve here? What could we do better? And we're constantly in dialogue with them, because clinical workflows are unbelievably complex, because there's so many different competing tasks that a clinician has to do. There are so many rules and regulations and defined pathways, and everyone does it slightly differently. A lot of the times, the tools that they use are 20 years old or even older, and that's particularly IT tools. And it's not as simple as, oh, here's a shiny new app and it's all cloud-based and GPU-based and blah, blah, blah. And they go like, what? But that doesn't fit in my workflow. It breaks my workflow. So that subtlety, so that helps me develop the product. The other thing, what it does do, it creates excitement with the clinicians. They feel heard, they feel seen, but most critically, they feel understood. So we're now building solutions for them, giving them solutions that really meet a pain point. So what are they going to do? They're going to tell their friends, they're going to tell their colleagues, they're going to go into social media, they're going to start talking about how amazing Sanome is and our product memory is. So that then creates this wildfire, this spread of, this is really, really cool because it solved a core problem for me.
Hmm. That sounds really amazing. And this is what my next question would be. Having built multiple companies across continents, how do you define sustainable innovation, especially in something as complex as digital health?
Oh, very good question. So I think sustainable innovation comes down to the pace of the user being able to adopt it in their environment. So we have some really highly disruptive innovation in some industries. So we think about things like, I don't know, online banking, even the iPhones, and really or even ChatGPT, that were really, really disruptive, but they still took time to hit a tipping point. I don't think that same thing can happen in healthcare, because healthcare as a system is designed to prevent change. Because every bit of change in healthcare introduces new risks. And risks is not like, oh, my bank account might get blocked, or, oh, ChatGPT gave me some wrong information. No, risk could be life or death of a patient.
Yeah.
So the system has been designed with so many fallback options and third eye principles, etc., that change in healthcare is always going to be really, really, really slow. So sustainable innovation in healthcare ultimately comes down to coming back down to the clinicians, working very closely with clinicians, co-designing with clinicians, giving them the trust that this tool is actually working, that this trust that the system is performing as intended. And three, that tool is embedded in their workflows. And we can see some things that go really, really rapid. So ambient voice technology has been around for 20 plus years in healthcare, but it just wasn't intuitive enough and it wasn't embedded enough in their workflows. Now, Dragon Dictate may disagree with that. But then suddenly this new wave of technology came through that was good enough that clinicians started using it outside of it. So I'm actually now contradicting myself, but that sustainability happened at the pace at which the clinicians needed it to be. So, and once the technology hits a tipping point and the trust and the safety is there, then it can go very rapid, but I think it takes a long time to build up.
Sounds good. So I will move to the last question. Benedikt, you actively mentor founders through Cambridge University and the Royal Academy of Engineering. What's one lesson you try to instill in the next generation of innovators in the deep tech or healthcare?
That's very simple. Go and speak to your customers. Go and speak to your users. Don't rely on ChatGPT. Don't do startup accelerators, incubators where you just sit there and strategize. Go and speak to a user and try and just shadow your user for a day or 2 or 3 doing that job. That's it. Really simple. Your customers will
Yes,
typically tell you what you need to build.
exactly. And I think so. The best way is to get customers as much early as you could, even with the one feature or even with the one functionality, because the more customer centric your product is, the more usable it's gonna be.
Exactly that. It's exactly that. Um, and it's a journey, right? So
Yeah.
what customers or users love is being part of that journey. Right? They've told you
Mhm.
about this problem. They don't expect you to go and build the all singing, all shining, dancing solution. What's the first bit that they use? If they feel that there's more coming, that shows that you're working with them, and
Mm.
they will become your advocates.
Totally agree. Totally. All right, Benedict. So we are moving to the next segment. It is called rapid fire questions. And the rule here is you cannot think before giving an answer. As soon as I stop asking question, you have to answer it. So my first question is, what's one trait every successful healthcare tech founder needs?
Slowness, pacing yourself. Healthcare works at a very slow pace. You cannot go and break things. It's all about trust. It's all about doing the right thing, which is regulation. Regulation's sexy. So pace yourself, slowness,
The hardest thing about turning clinical data into real world impact.
the regulation. So it is never as intuitive you think. And data to decision, that's where the critical bit is. What is the decision you're trying to solve? What data is available? How do you bridge that gap? So regulation.
Or one misconception about AI in healthcare you wish more people understood.
It's not as good as you think it is.
If you weren't building Sanam, what other frontier would you be exploring?
Renewable energy. I sit on the board of a solar car parks company called 3TI. I love that space. I think the debate has to come back to climate change. We do need to do something urgently about climate change. That debate has stopped over the last 2 or 3 years. It's scary. So I would be really thinking about um, energy generation, energy storage, energy distribution.
A book or idea that's deeply influenced how you think about innovation.
Nothing comes to mind, but then 50 books come to mind. I'm an avid reader. Has there been one book that's really deeply impacted me? Uh, yes, two actually. Trying to think what the author is. It's the guy that Walter Isaacson, the Elon Musk and the Steve Jobs biographies.
What's harder, raising capital or earning patient trust?
Raising capital. The market at the moment is very difficult. And I think it's good. Uh, 4 years ago, it was relatively straightforward that you could raise capital off a really good idea. Right now, investors have become more risk averse. They're more savvy. So they now want to see clinician trust, which ultimately is clinician adoption and ultimately revenue from clinicians.
In one sentence, what does the future of healthcare look like?
Data. Now I'm thinking actually. um, in one sentence, what does the future of healthcare look like? It looks data enabled, giving clinicians the ability. No, very simple. Your health understood. There you go.
That's, yep, that's the good answer. Okay, Benedict, I think so. I have learned ton from you from this conversation, like building products, understanding your customer needs, and then shipping something that's your customer really wants. And I hope my audience has learned the same thing. Thank you so much for sharing the insight, sharing your journey and everything. And That's all for now, guys. See you next episode. Until then, keep finding tech that finds you. Thank you.